Hey, welcome back to Bridal Sewing Techniques, and today we're going to learn how to convert a zipper backed gown to a corset back gown. Let's take your sewing to the next level. Okay, so the type of corset that we're going to put in is this grommet style corset. I know you can find in several places online how to do the loop back style, and there's kits they sell for that, but I want to share with you guys about how to put in the grommet style corset. You can do this for a design change. You can also do it to change the sizing of the gown. And I need to say before we get started, please excuse the audio in this video. I felt like because it's such an intense instruction that I really needed to just talk you through it while I was sewing. I do have my shop background music, which I don't have legal rights to, so I had to add a second layer of background music. Otherwise, YouTube would get mad at me for using that. So I think the content is worth it. Just bear with me. So I didn't want to bore you with all the details. What I did was I removed the zipper, and then I cut out the little triangle of fabric that was left here. The way I decided how much to cut out was I knew I could very easily pull it together to about here on her as far as the pinch. And of course you want it a little more open than that. And then also you can see this stitch that I've done, stabilizing stitch right through here, holding everything together. It's actually going to be folded back like this. So it's even going to be more open. I took the overlay away and I tacked this part back. This part that was near the corset had been really damaged from the clamps. You know how they clamp them in the back in the bridal shop, so it had really been damaged. So I cut kind of around this shape here, and I've got them laid out, pressed, and we're going to repair them, and we'll see if maybe on what I removed, maybe I could cut out, you know, some flowers or some leaves and add them in to a few places if it's needed. It may not be needed, but I did want to take care of those appliques for her, so I'm tidying them up. What I'm going to do now is this is where I'm going to turn it, where the stitch is. So I went ahead and cut in. I went ahead and opened this whole seam for the rest of the body of the gown. This is, trying to think of where would it be on her. This is almost a mermaid. So this is pretty close to the, you know, lower thigh here. I opened all this up and cut to the turn. And then this, after we lace her up in it, I'm going to kind of pin where it needs to be because I know it was a little baggy on her. So I'm going to pin it, and then that way I can come back through and just fit these seams to her the traditional way, you know, just turn them in and sew them together. Then I'm going to release this, you know, and sew them down in a way that just visually makes sense. So I've got all this prepped. Again, I have my seam on both sides. I've got this stabilizing it. I've got some strong boning here. I love the Ridgeline sew through boning. That's what this is, 1/2 inch. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to sew it to this. This is a larger size dress. This is like a 16 or 18, so she's going to need a lot of support. So I'm going to sew this probably twice down here, and I'll show you that in a minute. And then I'm going to flip it back like this, and I'm gonna stitch that down. There's two different ways you can do that. You can just hand stitch it along the edge, or you can go and do a stitch that'll show on the outside. When I like to do a strong corset, I don't mind having some extra rows of stitches showing because I'm focused on performance. We can really show off her curves and give her lots of support with the more performance that we work into her gown. And I think that matters more than hiding a few stitches. So that's what I'm going to do next. And then after we do that, it's going to be time to put the grommets in, so we can give her a grommet back corset, which, as you know, is very often found on gowns that are 10 grand or above in value. So this dress is really going to go up a notch from a worn out zipper to a designer style grommet style corset back. Okay, so I'm going to put this boning plenty high behind here, because when you fold it, because of this angle, it's not even going to go all the way to the top if you make it flush. So we want it to be more to the top of this, like that. So if we slide it over, it'd be up about that much. So see what I'm saying? Get it up there. We need to sew this a little higher than what we would think it would be. And I'm going to do another row of stitches right beside it. The reason why I'm doing two is because this boning will be stronger if it doesn't have a twist going in it, and the 2 rows are going to keep it from twisting. Now I'm going to sew the other side down just like that, just a mirror of what I just did, and I'm not going to bore you with that, so I won't record that. Oh, one step I didn't mention before I did this is that when I cut this, you know, I wanted it to be as flat of an edge as possible. I did heat seal this, so you can see a little bit of fraying is happening here, but really not a lot compared to what it would have done if I hadn't gone over it with the lighter before I sewed that. It's just going to give you a really neat edge that's very, very flat. So I just did that instead of, you know, I could have serged it or whatever, but this is super flat and super quick, so I heat sealed the edge. Okay, so I've sewn the other side. What we don't want is, we don't want to turn this all back and just have this abrupt ending to the boning that's super obvious. There's the end of the boning, there's the end of the corset, and then here's where the seam starts. We don't really want all of that to be kind of broadcast. So what you're going to do is you're going to taper. This is a really strong, stiff boning. It's wide. So instead of having the 1/2 inch, I went to a 3/8. And then I went to a 1/2 inch horsehair. So what you're going to do, I heat sealed the edge of the boning. I heat sealed the edge of the horsehair. Okay? And here it is in 2 separate pieces. So you can kind of picture what I did. Alright? So I'm going to sew these 2 together just like this. And then we're going to stack them. Let this horsehair braid overlap a little bit. It's going to be good and strong, followed by a little bit weaker, followed by just a little bit of body with the horsehair to kind of transition for you. So that's how we're going to sew that down. I'm not going to sew the horsehair braid down yet. I'll get all that worked out after we put in the corset and we figure out where the seam is going to be for the lower part of the bodice. And I'm going to sew this with I'm going to make 2 passes here, just like I did on the boning up higher. So very stiff, a little less stiff, and then just a little bit of body. I'm going to do that to the other side. And we're going to keep moving. So now I've folded this over. I'm going to make sure there's nothing behind it that I'm accidentally going to sew. And I'm just going to sew pretty close along the edge here. I'm just kind of gauging with my eye, you know, the distance from the turn to my stitch. I want that to be very equidistant going down because, you know, I don't want that stitch to look messy or anything like that. I want it to look very, very neat. So I'm going to pull over from the left as I stitch. That looks super neat. And then we're going to have, you know, the grommets. They're going to be set right here, right outside of this boning. We're going to do the same thing over on this side. Okay, so I'm just going to do a really basic stitch where I'm just catching this edge of this fabric and the lining of the dress. I'm not going all the way through where the stitches will show on the outside. And I'm not even putting them particularly close together. Some of the grommets are probably going to hit the stitch and maybe even cut it. And that's okay, because wherever that happens, the grommet is going to be holding the flap down. Also, the dress is going to be under no pressure for this to roll out because of the way that the ribbons lace up across it. This is going to be held flush to the back, to the bride's back, so there's no worry about that. It's mainly just to keep it from flipping while the dress is just hanging or something like that. It's going to help keep it stable for you. I think a lot about sewing, I think a lot of the way you can save time and stress is knowing what's going to matter down the road and what's not, you know? So there we go. Runaway Pearl. Poor little Pearl. Alright, so that's how that looks. I'm going to do the same to the other side. Then the next thing we're going to do is get our template out and mark where the grommets are going to be and start placing them. It's coming up. This is not super fancy, but I've got these little templates that I made. They're made out of cardstock. And this is 1 inch space, 1.25, 1.5. I use the 1.25, that's the distance between the grommets. I use this most commonly. The 1.5 is going to give a real open lacing pattern. I'm going to use that on a smaller size girl. You know, we're not too concerned about the pressure that the dress is going to be under. This is very moderate. The 1 inch ones, you're going to have a lot of the lacing going back and forth. So this would be for, you know, like a larger bride, or if the fabric, if you're kind of concerned about the fabric and you feel like you would like it, you know, the pressure more evenly distributed, this might be a little bit safer size. Mostly they would choose this though for their looks, and then we would just have to make sure that all the, you know, criteria and stuff is met for it still being a reliable distance for them. This dress is going to get the 1.25. Alright, so the way we're going to do this is I would like the first grommet to kind of start about here. So I'm feeling with my index finger back here for where the boning drops off and where this seam allowance, where the top of these are turned under, where that drops off. This is a nice little corner right here. So I'm going to start there, and so I'm going to start there, and I'm going to go down and make a little pencil mark. I'm going to do it nice and light. I'm going to turn my template this way so I can make sure that I'm putting them equidistant to the side here. So here we go. And then as I set these grommets, you'll see I kind of have a choice while I'm doing it. While I set them, I'm going to be feeling to make sure I'm far enough away from the boning and stuff like that. So I'm going to stop there to give her some room to tuck the lace in. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. grommets on each side that we're going to place. Okay, just a couple of random points to note. This is going to go across the seam. This one and this one. They're going to break that seam. So when we do that, we need to be careful because the dress is going to be under a lot of pressure. If we start pulling right here and it's a broken seam, this could kind of rip open. So what we're going to do is after we set that grommet, actually before I set the grommet, I'm going to go ahead and put a little bit of cement on the seam where the grommet's going to be. Just start with that. That in itself is not going to be enough, but it's just something to start with. And then we'll put the grommets in, and then I'm going to reinforce with a stitch right by it. In fact, I'll probably do a stitch. You'll see it's a two-part process. We're going to punch a hole, and then you have to set the grommet. So I'm probably going to punch the hole, stitch it, cement it, then set the grommets, and then probably do it again from the inside because we just do not want this to rip. It's super important. So I'm going to go ahead and mark the other side just like I did this one. So I marked the other side, and you're just going to want to line things up visually. Make sure these are all kind of hitting at the same spot, you know, when you compare them. Are these lined up? You don't want these misaligned, and right now is the perfect time to fix it. If I did need to move one of these dots, again, I made them really light. I would use a white plastic eraser and literally just erase it off of there. I needed to move it, but they look fine. Here's the grommet press, and again, we're going to do a two-step process. The first one is punching the holes. You've got these two die pieces. This screws and unscrews right here. So after you punch all your holes, you're going to go back through and put these in, and that's how you're going to set your grommet. So I'm going to show you all of that. I probably should have a pneumatic press because the gowns are so thick, but they're really expensive. So what I did was I got a hand press. This is a C-step, and I got a hand press, and we screwed it down to the tabletop, and then I put a pipe on top. That's really bad. Kids, do not try this at home. But it just gives you enough leverage to where it just goes right through the dress. I used to have to have my husband help me on some of the thicker gowns. But now, you know, you pull this thing back and you push down on that bar, and it gives you all the torque you need, and it'll go right through the gown. No probs. No probs. Alright, so I'm gonna line this up, and I really have to make sure I'm holding the fabric straight. All the layers are straight. There's no additional fabric behind where I'm getting ready to punch, and just really kind of nestle it down into that hole. Alright, hole number 1. 23 to go, right? Number 2. And sometimes you have to take a pair of nippers and help clear that out a little bit. It's doing good right now. And once you do this quite a few times, you're going to really get on a roll. You do have to make sure you do it right though, because you can't undo this. get the point. Alright, so I'm going to let you watch me change these. These dies come in different sizes, so you can pick what size grommet you want for the look that you want your shop to have. Time to set the grommets! Yay! Alright, so you set this like pointy side down, the flang side up. This is the, oh man, this one doesn't want to get squashed. This is the what's going to be on the outside, okay? You set that up in there. Sometimes they'll fall right back out. Most of the time not, because this is kind of like a little bit spring-loaded. It kind of holds it in place, but if it does want to fall out a lot, I just put a little beeswax on the nub and stick it up in there and it's fine. Okay, so then these little pieces, it almost reminds you of a contact lens. If you look at it really closely, it's kind of like a cup. See how it kind of curves up? You want the uppy side up and this round side down. So let it be like a cup in there. Okay, and you're going to lay the outside of the dress on here. And you're going to have to kind of wiggle this around a little bit to get all your holes through all your fabric layers to line back up. They will line back up because they were in line when we punched the hole, right? So get them all lined up. Watch the grommet come down to make sure you're not having bad aim. Okay, so there, we set our grommet. Yay! Alright, let's do another one. Put it up in there. Put it in like a little cup. Get your stuff aligned as best you can. And I kind of squat down and get on the level. Every now and then, if you don't push hard enough, it won't set and the two pieces will pop apart, and I'm not too worried about that. If it happens, you just redo it. You can overly press where the flang of the grommet will actually cut your fabric. You don't want to press that hard. If your fabric's that thick, you need to thin out some layers in the middle layers. Thin them out so it's a little more manageable. Here goes another one. Okay, and remember I stitched that and cemented it so that it'll be fine. It's ready for a good long life of service. And those stitches are just hidden right in there. So that's fabulous. That's what we want, right? Let's just be fabulous every day. No biggie. Alright, this one's not wanting to align. We're gonna get that every now and then. Let's try again. Ha! Much better. Oh, when they stick together, you just drop them and they fly apart. That's what I just did there. You don't want to accidentally press it with two on there. That's not going to work very well for you. Alright, and I'm going to let you look at this on a different angle too. Oops, I disturbed it. Put it back on there. Oh man. I'm not going to edit any of this out because I want you to see the real world. You're going to have to fight with it sometimes. Okay. And then of course sometimes your shop will catch on fire and they'll run the sirens by. Look! That was a little misfire. You get to see what a misfire looks like. To throw those out. Let's try again. Goodness. Here we go again. I think it's the angle of the dress to where we're at on this corset back, because I haven't struggled this much with one yet. The boning just keeps knocking it off track. And sometimes you're going to have them look like they were set perfectly fine, and the first time you lace the bride up, the grommet is just going to pop in too. And it's no biggie. You just reset it. Just come back over to the press and redo it. I always prepare my bride for that. When I'm lacing her up, I say, it's the first time we're lacing it. There might be a couple of loose teeth. It's no big deal. If there's something wrong with the grommet, it will tell us probably, usually, the very first time you put the dress on. And we'll just fix it. Oh, there we go again. Oh, misfire. Try again. There we go. Got half of it done. I'm going to go do the other half. I don't want to go into a lot of detail about how to make the modesty panel because, frankly, if you are doing bridal, you should be able to look at a modesty panel and reverse engineer it and just make one. It's super easy. You cut out a couple triangles of fabric. You want it a little bit longer than the corset back opening. You want it a little bit wider so that it will more than span the opening from side to side, and it'll also give you room for your seam allowance. And then you want to put a little bit of lightweight boning in there, perpendicular to the length of the corset back. Sew it all up in there, and then you're going to tack it into the corset. So again, you guys should all be clear with that. It's not complicated at all, this part. So we had a try on with the bride. It fit her beautifully, but I did get this sized, so I know how much to take up this back seam. That doesn't really have much to do with a corset. That's more just like fitting a garment. Pretty standard. So I won't go into all the gory details of that. I sewed in the modesty panel. It's sewn all down the inside on the left. We're going to paint these grommets ivory. They're white. They come in white. And then we're going to tack down this lace while she stands in the dress so that she gets a custom shape. So I'm going to get going on all that. We are viewing the inside of the corset back, and so this is what I did after I sewed up the lining to fit her. I took those two horsehair braid pieces and joined them together and have them tacked here. And then I've got a piece of heat sealed ribbon. I'm going to sew like this. Let's see. To the end. Depending on the level of quality she wants, technically, to really do this up pretty, again, level of quality, because budget matters with this kind of thing. It's a hand stitching, but it would be really pretty to take some satin cut on the bias, tab this, and feed it up, and cover this edge all the way up with hand stitching on both sides. That would really be the way to finish it off. And of course we could have finished the edge to begin with on here too. But this is just where her budget's at. This is not going to bother her. This is the tail of the modesty panel. It's going to be protecting her skin. So this is not anything that's ever going to be seen or felt. So she's happy with this, and I am too. I am very thoughtfully placing the appliques to where you can do the lacing around them. So that'll be pretty. Now these, I'm going to come in and stitch along here. And I'm going to let the lace, the ribbon lace up from behind here. So some of these are going to be covered. Some are going to be coming out like this, and then some are just going to be the ivory. So that way she's going to have a very organic shape coming along the corset back. So here's how it looks on her. I hope this video has helped you. I apologize again for the 2 layers of music in the background, but we have to play it straight, and I really felt the content was worth it. If you have any questions, please comment below. Also, subscribe and hit like and share.